The elevator ascended with barely a whisper. German engineering at its finest. 58 floors in 32 seconds. The polished steel walls reflected a distorted image of the man inside. Tall, immaculate charcoal Brioni suit, eyes that hadn't blinked in over 90 seconds. Vincent Ashford stood perfectly still as the digital display ticked upward. 54, 55, 56. His nostrils flared. Something was wrong. The air pressure had shifted, carrying with it a scent that didn't belong in his building. Copper. Salt. The unmistakable warmth of fresh blood. His own blood would have remained cold regardless, but now it seemed to crystallize in his veins. Not just any blood. Hers. The elevator chimed softly as it reached the executive floor. Vincent stepped out, Italian leather shoes making no sound on the marble. The reception area was empty. Elara's desk sat pristine as always. Laptop closed at a perfect right angle to the edge, single white orchid in full bloom. The Mont Blanc pen he'd given her for her 5th anniversary lay precisely parallel to her Smithson leather planner. But no Elara. He paused, inhaled deeply. The scent trail led down the eastern corridor away from his office toward the executive medical suite. Dr. Caldwell kept hours until 9 p.m. It was now 8:47. The cleaning staff wouldn't arrive for another hour. Vincent moved with the fluid economy of a predator, each step deliberate. The corridor's motion sensors triggered the lights ahead of him, soft ambient illumination casting no shadows. The temperature seemed to drop with his passing, the building itself responding to his mood. His phone vibrated once in his pocket. He ignored it. In 300 years, he had learned that true emergencies rarely announce themselves by text. The scent grew stronger. Beneath the copper tang of blood lay familiar notes he'd come to associate exclusively with Elara. Vanilla. Almond oil from the hand cream she applied exactly 4 times daily. And that indefinable human warmth that made her unique among his staff. The medical suite doors were closed, but not locked. Vincent placed his palm against the frosted glass, feeling the subtle vibration of voices within. The glass was cool beneath his hand, but beyond it he sensed heat, the elevated temperature of distress. He pushed the door open without knocking. CEOs didn't knock, and kings certainly didn't. The reception area was empty, but the inner examination room door stood ajar. Light spilled out in a harsh fluorescent wedge across the polished floor. Vincent caught fragments of hushed conversation. "Should call him." "Not yet. Let me finish." "Amount of blood loss is concerning." Dr. Caldwell's voice, clinical but with an undercurrent of tension. And beneath it, almost too faint for human ears, the slightly elevated heartbeat Vincent would recognize anywhere. Elara's pulse, racing at 112 beats per minute, approximately 32 beats above her normal resting rate. Unacceptable. Vincent moved through the reception area. The examination room door yielded to his touch, swinging open to reveal a tableau that sent a surge of something ancient and violent through his chest. Elara lay on the examination table. Her normally impeccable cream silk blouse was unbuttoned at the collar, the fabric stained with a spreading crimson bloom. Her chestnut hair had come loose from its usual French twist, falling across her too pale face. But it was her head that drew Vincent's focus, the left side of her skull, swollen, bruised deep purple, the kind of impact that fractured bone. Dr. Caldwell stood over her, pressing gauze to her neck. His latex-gloved hands were already soaked through with red. The doctor looked up, his face draining of color when he saw Vincent in the doorway. "Mr. Ashford, I was about to call you." Vincent's gaze never left Elara. "Report." It wasn't a request. "Severe concussion, skull fracture, left temporal region. 2 puncture wounds on the left carotid ragged edges. Approximately 1.2 pints of blood loss. Type AB negative." Dr. Caldwell's professional composure was fraying at the edges. She was found unconscious in the east stairwell. Floor 56. Elara's eyes fluttered open, focused with visible effort on Vincent's face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "The Westlake meeting. I missed it." Vincent crossed the room in 3 strides. "Who?" he said softly. "The fuck fractured your skull?" The words emerged quiet as falling snow, but they froze the room nonetheless. Even the electronic beep of the blood pressure monitor seemed to hesitate. Ilara's lips trembled. "I didn't. It was dark." "Who?" Not a question this time. Dr. Caldwell swallowed audibly. "Mr. Ashford, she needs rest. The trauma—" "Leave us." The doctor stripped off his gloves with a snap and retreated, closing the door behind him with a soft click. Alone with Ilara, Vincent allowed himself to inhale fully, cataloging every nuance of scent in the room. Beyond her blood and fear, there was another marker, familiar, familial, and underneath it, that ridiculous cologne, Tom Ford, tobacco vanilla. His brother had worn it for the past 50 years like a signature. Vincent reached down, his pale fingers hovering just above the gauze on Ilara's neck. "Tell me what happened." Ilara's eyes widened. Her pulse jumped. He could hear it accelerate, the rush of blood through damaged vessels. "I was coming back from legal, floor 56. The elevator was taking too long, so I took the stairs." She paused, wincing. "Someone grabbed me from behind, slammed my head into the concrete wall." Her hand moved unconsciously to her skull, fingers trembling as they traced the swelling. "I couldn't see clearly. Everything went bright, then dark. But I could smell him." Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Cologne, expensive, sweet, like tobacco and vanilla." Vincent's jaw tightened imperceptibly. What did he say? Ilara's fingers twisted the hem of her skirt, knuckles whitening. "He said—" A tear slipped from the corner of her eye, tracking a glistening path to her temple. "He said to tell you blood debts require blood payment." Her gaze locked with Vincent's. "He said you'd understand." For 3 seconds, Vincent didn't move, didn't breathe. Then he straightened, walked to the wall-mounted phone, pressed a button. "Dr. Caldwell, return, now." The doctor entered immediately, as if he'd been waiting just outside. "She requires a transfusion," Vincent said, not a question. "A B negative. You have it in reserves." "Yes, sir. We keep all rare types on hand for executive staff." "You will not leave her side until I return." Vincent's voice remained soft, but something in his tone made the doctor take an involuntary step backward. "No visitors, no calls, no exceptions." "Understood." Vincent moved to the door, paused with his back to the room. "Ilara?" "Yes?" Her voice sounded small, diminished by blood loss and fear. "How long has my brother been attempting to contact you?" The silence stretched. Vincent could hear her heartbeat accelerate again, the slight catch in her breath as she weighed truth against self-preservation. 3 weeks, she finally admitted. "It started with emails to my personal account, then text messages from unlisted numbers. I blocked them all." The examination table paper crinkled as she shifted. "I didn't report it because I thought I was handling it." Vincent turned slightly, his profile sharp against the light. "And today?" "He called the direct line at my desk, said he needed to speak with you urgently, that it was a family matter." Her voice strengthened slightly. "I told him to go through proper channels. That's when he said he'd be waiting in the stairwell, that he knew my routine." Another tear escaped. "I should have called security." "Yes," Vincent agreed, his tone devoid of accusation. "You should have." He left without another word. In the corridor, the lights flickered once, then stabilized. Vincent removed his phone, opened an encrypted app. A red dot pulsed on the screen, moving slowly through the city grid. The tracking system had been Ilara's idea, implemented 6 months ago after a competitor had attempted to poach key executives. She had never known that Vincent had modified it, added capabilities that existed in no commercial technology. Every executive, every employee above a certain clearance level, all tagged with microscopic trackers in their company badges, including Dominic. The red dot was stationary now. Hemoglobin Club, Downtown Entertainment District. Vincent's lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. His brother had always possessed a particular brand of arrogance that bordered on suicidal. Vincent descended to his private office, unlocked the concealed safe behind the Rothko painting. Inside, nestled in custom foam, sat 3 vials of clear liquid, each labeled in Dr. Caldwell's precise handwriting. Daywalking Serum, Prototype 7. 2 years of research, 17 failed attempts, 3 working prototypes. Vincent removed 1 vial, slipped it into his jacket pocket. He walked to his desk, opened the bottom drawer. Inside lay a leather portfolio, 5 years of documentation, performance reviews, commendations, personal observations. His hand hovered over a photograph clipped to the first page. Elara's employee ID photo. First day. She'd worn a navy suit, hair pulled back severely, eyes bright with determination and barely concealed nervousness. He'd hired her on the spot. Not because of her credentials, though those were impeccable. Not because of her references, though they'd been glowing. He'd hired her because when she'd walked into his office, she'd noticed the Kandinsky painting on the wall and said, "Composition 8, 1923, my favorite of his geometric period." No flattery, no attempt to impress, just honest appreciation. In 300 years, Vincent had learned to value honesty above all else. He closed the portfolio, returned it to the drawer, picked up his phone, dialed a number he'd never saved in contacts. A voice answered on the first ring. Male, Eastern European accent. Yes? The penthouse, dawn, medical bay preparation, restraints, full containment protocol. Understood. The subject? Family. A pause. Then, quieter, I will make arrangements. Vincent ended the call. He stood, adjusted his cuffs, checked his reflection in the darkened window. The city spread below him, a constellation of human ambition rendered in glass and steel. Somewhere out there his brother was celebrating, probably already drunk on champagne and his own perceived cleverness, probably bragging to whatever sycophants surrounded him about the message he'd sent. Dominic had always been impulsive, reckless, a child playing at immortality. But this crossed a line that could not be redrawn. Vincent descended to the parking garage. The lights dimmed in his presence, as if the building itself recognized his mood. His Bentley waited in its reserved space, glossy black and predatory. The driver's door opened before he reached it, not by his hand, a minor slip in control. He would need to be more careful. Vincent settled into the leather seat, placed his hands on the steering wheel. For a moment he simply sat there, eyes closed, breathing in the scent of polished wood and premium hide. Then he opened his eyes, started the engine. The Bentley glided through the underground garage, headlights cutting through shadow. The security gate lifted automatically as he approached. The guard inside the booth straightened instinctively, hand rising in nervous salute. Vincent acknowledged him with the slightest incline of his head. He merged into the night traffic of downtown. The city moved around him, oblivious to the ancient thing in their midst. Traffic lights turned green in sequence as he approached, a subtle manipulation, one he rarely indulged, but tonight efficiency trumped discretion. The tracking app showed the red dot still stationary at hemoglobin. Vincent's route would take approximately 14 minutes at current traffic density. His phone vibrated. Dr. Caldwell, patient stable, transfusion in progress, vitals improving. Vincent didn't reply. He turned onto the highway, the Bentley accelerating smoothly. In his pocket, the daywalking serum vial was a small, cold weight against his chest. Dawn was 8 hours away, plenty of time. Vincent's reflection in the rearview mirror showed a man in perfect control, calm, composed, every inch the CEO who'd built an empire over 3 centuries. But his eyes told a different story. They hadn't blinked in over 5 minutes, and deep in their gray depths, something ancient stirred. Something that remembered Constantinople burning, Rome falling, empires crumbling to dust. Something that had outlasted kings and witnessed the death of gods. Vincent spoke into the silence of the car, his voice soft, almost gentle. By sunrise my brother will be dust. The words hung in the air, a promise, a sentence, an inevitability. The Bentley drove on through the night, carrying Vincent Ashford toward Hemoglobin Club, toward his brother, toward a reckoning 300 years in the making. Behind him, the city lights grew distant. Ahead, the downtown entertainment district glowed with neon and false promises. And somewhere between the two, a line was crossed that could never be uncrossed. Vincent's hands tightened on the steering wheel, the leather creaked. In 8 hours, the sun would rise, and Dominic Ashford would learn what it meant to touch what belonged to Vincent, to fracture her skull, to spill her blood, to cross the only line that mattered. The Bentley's engine purred, a predator's purr, satisfied, patient, certain of the kill. Hemoglobin Club announced itself with a crimson neon sign against black brick. Converted warehouse, discreet entrance. The kind of place that didn't advertise because it didn't need to. A line stretched down the block, beautiful people in their finest, all desperate for entry to the city's most exclusive night spot. The irony of the name was not lost on Vincent. His kind had always found humor in hiding in plain sight. 2 bouncers guarded the velvet rope, massive men, earpieces, impassive expressions that cracked the moment Vincent approached. Recognition was immediate. Mr. Ashford, the larger of the two, unhooked the rope without hesitation. Unexpected pleasure. Vincent stopped, looked at him, really looked. The bouncer's pulse quickened, a thunderous rhythm to Vincent's sensitive ears. Is he inside? The bouncer's expression revealed nothing, but sweat formed at his temple despite the cool night air. I'm not sure who. Don't. One word, soft as silk, sharp as a blade. The bouncer swallowed. VIP section, sir. Arrived 40 minutes ago. For security. Armed. Vincent slipped a folded bill into the man's jacket pocket. The bouncer would later discover it was enough to cover 3 months' rent. Inside, the club pulsed with carefully orchestrated sensory assault. Music at precisely the right volume, lighting designed to flatter while maintaining mystery, the scent of expensive cologne mingling with top-shelf liquor. Vincent moved through the crowd without touching anyone, yet people stepped aside, instinctively. Creating a path without conscious awareness, they were doing so. Conversations paused mid-sentence as he passed. Eyes followed his progress before their owners realized they were staring. The ancient thing inside him radiated outward, a predator's aura that human hindbrain recognized even when human consciousness did not. The main floor was theater, beautiful people performing the rituals of nightlife. Vincent registered it all without interest. His focus was singular. The glass-walled VIP section overlooked the dance floor like a throne room. And there, lounging on white leather with a champagne flute in hand, sat Dominic Ashford. Younger by 3 centuries, though they appeared similar in age. Both in their apparent late 30s. Both blessed with the Ashford features that had inspired fear and desire across millennia. But where Vincent was winter, Dominic was autumn. Warmer tones, a perpetual flush that mimicked life, eyes that invited rather than commanded. It was a cultivated facade, one that had served him well in luring prey and allies alike. 4 men in tailored suits surrounded him, jackets cut to conceal shoulder holsters. They scanned the crowd below with practiced vigilance, unaware that the true threat had already arrived. A hostess approached Vincent, professional smile, curious eyes. Good evening, sir. Can I help you? VIP section. Of course. Do you have a reservation? I don't need one. Something in his tone made her step back. I'll check with management. Vincent finally looked at her, gray eyes meeting hers. You want to escort me upstairs now? Her pupils dilated. Expression went momentarily blank. Then a smile spread across her face. Too wide, too eager. Yes, of course. Please follow me. The private elevator doors closed silently. Small space of polished steel and subtle lighting. The hostess stood unnaturally still, breathing shallow. "When we arrive," Vincent said quietly, "you will return to your duties. You will remember escorting me. Nothing more." "Yes, sir." The doors opened onto the VIP level. Glass walls provided views of the dance floor below, while privacy screens could be activated with a button. Dominic had not yet noticed his arrival, too engrossed in whatever story he was telling the two women flanking him. His security had better instincts. The first man straightened, hand drifting toward his concealed weapon as he registered Vincent's presence. He murmured into his wrist microphone, alerting his colleagues. One by one they shifted position, forming a loose perimeter around Dominic, who remained oblivious, arm draped around one woman's shoulders as he whispered something that made her laugh. The lead security man approached Vincent, expression professionally neutral despite the tension in his shoulders. "Sir, this is a private gathering. I'm going to have to ask you to—" "Your name is Garrett Stone." The man stopped, jaw tightening. Vincent continued, voice conversational. "Former Special Forces. Dishonorable discharge after an incident in Kandahar that was quietly buried. 2 children from your first marriage you haven't seen in 4 years. A gambling debt to the Costello family you're paying off through services rendered." He paused, tilted his head slightly. "And a rather distinctive tattoo on your left shoulder blade. A phoenix rising from flames, covering the scar from the shrapnel that should have killed you." The color drained from Garrett's face. "How did you—" "Tell my brother I'm here." Garrett swallowed, nodded once, turned to make his way back to Dominic. He bent to speak into his employer's ear, posture rigid with newfound fear. Dominic's reaction was immediate. His head snapped up, eyes scanning the room until they locked with Vincent's. For a moment, naked panic flashed across his features. Then he masked it with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He whispered something to the women beside him. They gathered their belongings and departed with curious, backward glances. Vincent remained where he stood, making Dominic come to him, a small power play. But in their world, such gestures carried weight. Dominic approached with the careful gait of a man crossing a minefield while trying to appear relaxed. His security moved with him, maintaining their protective formation despite their obvious unease. "Vincent," Dominic's voice carried forced warmth, "what an unexpected pleasure. Slumming it with the mortals tonight?" "Dismiss your men." Dominic's smile tightened. "I don't think that would be wise, brother. Not everyone holds you in the same high regard that I do. They are an insult." Vincent's tone never changed. "Dismiss them, or I will." The brothers stared at each other, silent battle of wills that caused the air between them to thicken. The security team shifted uncomfortably, hands hovering near weapons. Finally, Dominic sighed dramatically. "Give us the room, gentlemen. Wait by the elevator." Garrett stepped forward. "Sir, I strongly advise against—" "Did I ask for your advice, Garrett?" The edge in Dominic's voice was unmistakable now. "Wait, by the elevator." The security team retreated, positioning themselves near the exit but keeping their employer in sight. The other VIP guests had already created a wide berth around the brothers, sensing danger without understanding its source. "There." Dominic spread his hands in a placating gesture. "Just family now. Can I offer you a drink? They have a rather excellent AB negative on the private menu." Vincent stepped closer. Despite himself, Dominic took a small step back. "You put your hands on what is mine." Vincent's voice was so low that only his brother could hear it. Dominic's facade cracked slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Her neck bears your fingerprints, her skull fractured by your hand. Her blood carries traces of your saliva." The assistant. Dominic attempted a dismissive laugh that came out strangled. "Really, Vincent? All this over a human? I was merely sampling. Surely you don't begrudge me a small taste of—" Vincent moved. One moment he was standing 3 feet away, the next his hand was wrapped around Dominic's throat, lifting him slightly so his expensive shoes barely touched the floor. The movement was too fast for human eyes to track. To any observers, it would appear as though Dominic had suddenly decided to stand on his tiptoes during their conversation, a simple manipulation of perception, one of the oldest tricks. "She is mine," Vincent whispered, lips close to his brother's ear. "Not to feed from, not to touch, not to fracture, not to look at for too long. Mine." Dominic clawed at the hand around his throat, eyes widening as he realized he could not break the grip. "The others!" he gasped, jerking his head toward his security team, who had not yet noticed their employer's predicament. "They see us having a friendly conversation." Vincent's grip tightened fractionally. "A simple manipulation of perception. You used to be capable of such basic skills before you became soft, dependent on human protectors." He released his grip. Dominic staggered, one hand going to his throat. "This is beneath you," he rasped. "She's just a secretary." "Executive assistant," Vincent corrected mildly, straightening his already immaculate cuffs. "And she is considerably more than her job title, as you well know. Otherwise you wouldn't have targeted her specifically." Dominic smoothed down his jacket, attempting to regain composure. "It was a message, brother. A reminder that your territory is not as secure as you believe." "A message." Vincent's tone was contemplative. "And what response did you anticipate?" Something in his quiet delivery made Dominic glance nervously toward his security team. They remained by the elevator, watching but unable to hear the conversation. "I expected you to be angry," Dominic admitted, "to make threats, perhaps demand compensation, the usual dance." "The usual dance." Vincent turned slightly, looking out over the crowded dance floor below, humans moving in their choreographed rituals of attraction and rejection, unaware of the predators among them. "Come with me." Dominic blinked. "Where?" "The penthouse." Understanding dawned in Dominic's eyes, followed immediately by fear. "No, absolutely not. We can settle this here, or at neutral ground." "This is not a negotiation." Vincent glanced toward the security team. They had begun to sense something amiss and were moving closer. "Call them off." Dominic hesitated, calculation evident in his expression. "And if I refuse?" The temperature in the VIP section dropped, perceptibly. Champagne in nearby glasses frosted over. Patrons shivered, looking around in confusion at the sudden cold. "Then I will demonstrate exactly how secure my territory is," Vincent said, "beginning with your 4 human shields." As if on cue, Garrett clutched suddenly at his chest. Dropping to one knee, the other security men rushed to his side, attention momentarily diverted from their employer. "Stop it," Dominic hissed. "You've made your point." Vincent inclined his head slightly. Garrett gasped as the invisible pressure on his heart eased. He remained on the floor, breathing heavily, while his colleagues helped him to a nearby chair. "The penthouse," Vincent repeated. "Now." Dominic glanced around the club, assessing his options. The other VIP patrons were watching with undisguised curiosity. His security team was in disarray. The exits were clear, but he had always known, that running from Vincent was futile. "Fine," he conceded, voice tight. "Let me tell my men." "They've been informed," Vincent interrupted. "They believe you've decided to resolve our business disagreement privately at my residence. They've been instructed to wait here for further orders." Dominic stared at him. "When did you—" "While you were weighing your non-existent options." Vincent gestured toward the private elevator. "Shall we?" They walked side by side, maintaining the illusion of a cordial meeting for any observers. In the elevator, Dominic leaned against the wall, studying his brother's impassive profile. "You've changed," he said finally. "There was a time when you would have simply killed me for such an offense." "Perhaps I'm evolving. Or perhaps your pet is having more influence than you care to admit." Dominic straightened as the elevator reached the ground floor. "That's it, isn't it? She's softened you." The doors opened to the main club level. Vincent stepped out without responding, knowing his brother would follow. They moved through the crowd, which parted instinctively before them, sensing danger without understanding its source. Outside, the night air was crisp. Vincent's Bentley waited at the curb, though he had parked it 2 blocks away, another small demonstration that went unmentioned between them. "Get in." Dominic hesitated, one hand on the car's roof. "Brother, surely we can—" "Get in." The word carried weight. Centuries of authority compressed into 2 syllables. Dominic slid into the passenger seat, movement stiff with reluctance. Vincent closed the door, walked around to the driver's side. Steps measured, unhurried. As they pulled away from the curb, Dominic stared out the window at the passing city lights. "She's really gotten to you, hasn't she?" he said quietly. "This human girl." Vincent kept his eyes on the road. "You mistake restraint for weakness." "Do I?" Dominic turned to study his brother's profile. The Vincent I knew would have ripped my heart out through my spine for touching what was his. Instead, you're taking me for a drive. What would the others say if they knew the great Vincent Ashford had been domesticated? The car accelerated smoothly, engine purring as they merged onto the highway leading toward the exclusive high-rise where Vincent maintained his penthouse. The city skyline glittered against the night sky, a constellation of human ambition rendered in glass and steel. "You still don't understand," Vincent said after a long silence. "This isn't mercy, this is precision." Dominic shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Meaning?" "Killing you in the club would have been messy, inefficient. It would have raised questions, required cleanup, created loose ends." Vincent changed lanes, overtaking a slower vehicle. "I prefer to be thorough." The implication hung in the air between them. Dominic swallowed, earlier bravado evaporating. "You can't be serious, over a human. You continue to fixate on what she is rather than who she is to me." Vincent's tone remained conversational, as if they were discussing a business merger rather than potential fratricide, a strategic error. They rode in silence for several minutes, tension in the car thick enough to taste. Then Dominic spoke again, voice different now, quieter. "Do you remember Rome?" he asked. "Before the fall, we swore we'd never turn on each other, no matter what." Vincent's hands tightened on the steering wheel, just slightly. "I remember." "Then how can you do this?" "You fractured her skull, Dominic." The words landed like stones. "You slammed her head into concrete, fed from her while she bled, left her unconscious in a stairwell." Vincent's voice never rose, never hardened. That made it worse. "And you ask me how I can do this?" He changed lanes, smoothly, as if they were discussing the weather. "I can do this because you've forgotten what we are. Not gods, not kings, just things that live too long and mistake survival for purpose." Dominic swallowed hard. "She gave you purpose. She reminded me I had one." The Bentley took the exit toward the high-rise. The building rose against the night sky like a blade. "You could have just taken territory," Dominic said, desperate now. "Blood rights banned me from the city. Why this?" Vincent pulled into the garage, killed the engine, turned to face his brother fully for the first time since they'd left the club. "Because you need to understand something, brother, and you need to understand it in your bones before you die." His eyes caught the garage lights, reflected red for just a moment. "There is nothing I would not burn for her. Not you, not the council, not the entirety of our kind." He opened his door. "That's why this." The security gate recognized the car automatically, lifting to allow them entry. Vincent guided the Bentley to his reserved space near the private elevator. The garage was silent, empty at this hour. Their footsteps echoed as they exited the vehicle. Dominic followed his brother to the elevator, movements becoming increasingly reluctant with each step. When the doors opened, he hesitated at the threshold. "Brother," he said, genuine fear entering his voice for the first time. "Consider, we are family, the last of our bloodline." Vincent stood inside the elevator, watching him impassively. "Come," the word carrying weight of centuries. Against his will, Dominic felt his body responding to the command, stepping into the elevator though every instinct screamed at him to run. The doors closed behind him with a soft, final sound. "What have you done to me?" he whispered, feeling the compulsion like iron bands around his limbs. Vincent's expression remained unchanged as the elevator began its ascent. "I've reminded you of the natural order of things," he replied. "You seem to have forgotten your place in it." The elevator continued its silent climb, carrying them toward a reckoning 300 years in the making. The elevator doors opened onto Vincent's sanctuary, vast open space, polished concrete and glass, minimalist furnishings in blacks and grays. The eastern wall comprised entirely of floor-to-ceiling windows, currently covered by automated blackout curtains. "After you," Vincent said, a slight incline of his head. Dominic's feet moved against his will, carrying him into the penthouse. The moment they cleared the elevator, Vincent pressed a button on the wall panel. Steel security shutters slid into place behind them with a heavy mechanical thud. "I've disconnected the override," Vincent said, removing his coat and draping it over a chair with precise movements. "We won't be disturbed." "This is madness," Dominic hissed, fighting the invisible bonds that held him in place. "You would break our covenant over Immortal?" Vincent moved to the bar that occupied one corner of the room, selected a crystal decanter filled with amber liquid, poured 2 glasses, carried them across the room with deliberate steps. "The covenant was broken the moment you touched her." He offered 1 glass to Dominic. Dominic's hand trembled slightly as he accepted it. "Drink," Vincent commanded. Dominic's arm raised involuntarily, the glass touching his lips. He swallowed, eyes widening. 30-year Macallan, Vincent said. "Her favorite." He set his own glass down untouched. "I wanted you to taste it." Understanding dawned in Dominic's expression, horror following immediately after. "You've been drinking with her, sharing meals, living." "Something you've forgotten how to do in your endless pursuit of power." Vincent walked to the windows, gazing out at the city lights twinkling against the night sky. A constellation of human existence spread below them. "Do you remember Constantinople?" he asked, voice distant with memory. "Before it fell?" Dominic's jaw tightened. "Of course, we were gods among them." "No." Vincent turned back to face his brother. "We were parasites, feeding on their achievements while creating nothing of our own." He moved to a sleek console table, opened a drawer, removed a small remote control. With a press of a button, soft lighting illuminated a section of wall. A gallery of photographs spanning decades. Vincent with presidents, with industry titans, at groundbreaking ceremonies for hospitals, schools, research centers. "I've built something here," Vincent said. "Something real, with her help." Dominic sneered, though the effect was diminished by the fear in his eyes. "With her inspiration. She reminded me what it was to be alive, to care about more than just survival." Vincent pressed another button. A final photograph illuminated Vincent and Ilara at a company gala, her head thrown back in laughter, his eyes fixed on her with an expression that, even to Dominic, was unmistakable. "You love her," Dominic said, the words part accusation, part realization. Vincent didn't answer. Instead, he unbuttoned his cuffs, rolled up his sleeves with methodical precision. "You know what happens now." It wasn't a question. Dominic's false bravado crumbled. "Brother, please, we share the same blood." "And yet you spilled hers without hesitation." Vincent's voice remained calm, but his eyes had darkened to obsidian. "You will never touch her again." With a flick of his wrist, Vincent released the compulsion, holding Dominic in place. His brother stumbled forward, catching himself against a chair. "You're giving me a chance to fight?" Dominic asked, straightening. "I'm giving you the dignity of choice," Vincent replied. "You can face me as an equal, or you can die on your knees. Either way, you will not leave this room." Dominic's lips curled back, revealing the sharp points of his fangs. "You've always underestimated me, brother." With preternatural speed, he lunged across the room, aiming for Vincent's throat. Vincent sidestepped the attack with fluid grace, caught Dominic's arm, used his momentum to slam him into the wall. The impact cracked the concrete, sending a spiderweb of fractures across the surface. "I've never underestimated you," Vincent said, releasing his grip and stepping back. "I've simply always been better." Dominic pushed away from the wall, circling his brother with predatory focus. "You've been distracted, weakened by your affection for the human. I've been preparing for this moment for decades." He struck again, faster this time. A blur of movement invisible to human eyes. His fist connected with Vincent's jaw, snapping his head back with the force of the blow. Before Vincent could recover, Dominic delivered a second strike to his midsection, driving the air from his lungs. Vincent staggered backward, hand coming away from his mouth stained with dark blood. "Impressive," he acknowledged, rolling his shoulders. "You've been feeding well." "On the best," Dominic confirmed with a cruel smile. "The fear makes the blood sweeter." Something shifted in Vincent's expression, a hardening, a coldness that seemed to drop the temperature in the room. "You always did talk too much." This time it was Vincent who moved, crossing the space between them with such speed that Dominic had no time to react. His hand closed around his brother's throat, lifting him off the ground with one arm. Dominic clawed at the grip, feet dangling uselessly above the floor. "I could end you now," Vincent said, voice terrifyingly soft. "Crush your windpipe. Tear out your heart. It would be quick." He released his grip suddenly. Dominic crumpled to the floor, gasping for unnecessary breath, a reflex from human days. But that would be too merciful. Dominic pushed himself to his feet, but his movements were sluggish now, uncoordinated. What did you do?" "The whiskey," Vincent explained, walking to the windows, checking his watch. "A compound Dr. Caldwell developed. It affects our unique physiology. You'll find your strength fading quickly now." Dominic lunged again, desperate. But Vincent caught him easily, spun him around, forced him to his knees. "I wanted you to fight," Vincent continued, his grip iron on his brother's shoulder. "So you'd understand you never stood a chance." He dragged Dominic across the floor, to the eastern wall of windows. With his free hand, he pressed a button on the wall panel. The blackout curtains began to retract, slowly, revealing the first hint of pre-dawn light on the horizon. "No," Dominic whispered, trying to crawl away from the windows. "Vincent, please. We're brothers, the last of our line." Vincent's grip remained firm, pulling Dominic to his knees, positioning him directly before the glass as the curtains continued their inexorable retreat. The sky was lightening now, deep blue giving way to purple and pink at the edges. "I want you to understand something before you die," Vincent said, kneeling beside his brother. "This isn't just about Ilara, though that would be reason enough. This is about what you've become, what you would turn our kind into if left unchecked." Dominic's eyes darted frantically between Vincent and the brightening sky. "The others won't stand for this. They'll come for you. Let them come." Vincent's voice carried no concern, no fear. "They already fear me. After today they'll understand why." The first golden rays of sunlight breached the horizon, sending fingers of light reaching toward the penthouse windows. Dominic flinched as they drew closer, pressing himself against Vincent in a desperate attempt to escape the inevitable. "Brother," he pleaded, voice breaking, "we've survived so much together. Plagues, wars, the Inquisition. Don't end it like this." For a moment, something like regret flickered across Vincent's features. "There was a time I would have forgiven anything for the sake of our shared blood," he admitted. "But that time passed the moment you decided your pride was worth her pain." He paused, then added quietly, "the moment you fractured her skull." The sunlight touched the glass now, filling the room with a warm glow that belied its deadly nature to their kind. Dominic began to tremble, smoke rising from his skin where the indirect light touched him. "You don't have to watch," Vincent said, voice softening slightly. "Close your eyes. Think of Constantinople, of Rome in its glory, of all the ages we witnessed together." Tears of blood tracked down Dominic's cheeks. "I don't want to die," he whispered. "None of us do," Vincent replied. "That's why we've lived so long. But all things end, brother, even us." With a final press of the button, the curtains fully retracted. Sunlight flooded the penthouse, bathing the room in golden light. Dominic screamed as his skin began to blacken and peel, the ancient blood in his veins boiling. He clutched at Vincent, who held him firmly in place. His own skin protected by the serum Dr. Caldwell had developed years ago. She's just human, Dominic gasped through his agony, body beginning to crumble. She'll never accept what you are. Vincent watched impassively as his brother's features melted away, revealing the monster beneath the beautiful facade. Perhaps not, he acknowledged. But that's my burden to bear, not yours. Dominic's final scream died in his throat as his vocal cords disintegrated. His body collapsed inward. Centuries of unnatural existence reduced to ash in moments. The sunlight continued to pour through the windows, dust motes dancing in the beams where Dominic had knelt seconds before. Vincent remained still, watching as the last particles of his brother scattered across the polished floor. He felt no triumph, no satisfaction, only a hollow certainty that he had done what was necessary. He rose to his feet, brushing the remnants of his brother from his clothing. The sun continued its ascent, warming his face without harm. One of the benefits of Dr. Caldwell's research, funded generously over decades, not true day-walking, but protection enough for moments like this. Vincent pressed another button on the wall panel. The blackout curtains began to close once more, returning the penthouse to comfortable dimness. He walked to his desk, picked up his phone, dialed a familiar number. "It's done," he said simply when the call connected. "Have a cleaning crew ready the penthouse within the hour." He ended the call, stood for a moment in the silence, looking at his hand. Dominic's ash, still clinging to his fingers, 300 years of shared history, showed a man in perfect control. Calm showed a man in perfect control. Calm, composed, but his eyes told a different story. They carried the weight of what he'd done, the weight of being the last. He dried his hands, straightened his shirt, put his suit jacket back on. Then he left the penthouse. The Bentley purred to life at his touch, the familiar luxury enveloping him as he pulled out of the garage and into the morning traffic. The city was coming awake around him, humans hurrying to jobs, to appointments, to all the small moments that made up their brief lives. He had once viewed their ephemeral existence with pity, even contempt. Now he saw the beauty in it, the urgency, the necessity of making each moment matter because there were so few of them. The hospital came into view, a modern structure of glass and steel that bore his name on the emergency wing. He parked in the reserved space, made his way through the quiet corridors, nodding to staff who recognized him but knew better than to approach. The guards outside Ilara's room stepped aside without a word. Vincent paused at the door, composed himself, then entered. She was sleeping, breathing even. Color improved from the night before. The machines monitoring her vital signs beeped softly, a reassuring rhythm that matched the steady beat of her heart. Vincent took his place in the chair beside her bed, reached out, took her hand in his. At his touch, her eyes fluttered open, focusing slowly on his face. "You came back," she murmured, voice rough from sleep and medication. "I told you I would." She studied his face, noting the almost imperceptible changes, the fading cut above his eye, the slight stiffness in his movements. "Is it over?" Vincent nodded once. "It's over. He won't hurt you again, or anyone else." Ilara closed her eyes briefly, absorbing this. When she opened them again, there was a question in their depths. "Did you kill him?" For a moment Vincent considered the weight of his answer, then he met her gaze directly. "Yes." She was quiet for a long moment, fingers tightening slightly around his. "I should feel something about that," she finally said. "Horror, maybe, or relief, but I just feel tired." "Rest then," he told her, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "I'll be here when you wake." But she didn't close her eyes. Instead, she continued to study him with unexpected intensity. "There's more to you than you've ever let me see, isn't there? More than anyone sees." The question hung between them, laden with implications. Vincent felt the weight of centuries pressing down on him, all the secrets, all the careful distance he had maintained. "Yes," he admitted, "there is. Will you tell me someday?" Her eyelids were growing heavy as the medication pulled her back toward sleep. Vincent watched the pulse in her throat, listened to the rush of blood in her veins, the sounds that had once signaled only hunger to him, but now meant something far more precious. Life. Her life. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "if you want to know." "I do," she whispered, already drifting, her eyes closed, breathing deepened, but her hand remained in his, fragile, mortal, irreplaceable. Vincent settled back in his chair, watching Ilara sleep. Outside, the morning sun climbed higher, painting the city in gold. His phone vibrated. Unknown number. He answered without speaking. A voice, old, European accent, vaguely Slavic. "Vincent Ashford, we have heard of your family matter." Silence. "The Council does not look favorably upon violations of the Covenant, brother killing brother, over a human no less." Vincent's eyes never left Ilara's sleeping form. "The Covenant was broken when he fractured her skull." "That is not for you to decide." "It is decided." Vincent's voice was soft, final. "If the Council takes issue, they know where to find me." "They will come, Vincent Ashford, and when they do, let them come." He ended the call, blocked the number, set the phone face down on the bedside table. Ilara stirred slightly, her hand tightening around his. Vincent leaned forward, studied her face, the fading bruise on her temple, the bandage on her neck, the slow, steady rise and fall of her chest. 300 years of careful neutrality, of avoiding conflicts, of maintaining treaties with those who would see him destroyed if they knew what he'd done. All of it meaningless now. He had chosen, and he would choose her again, every time. The door opened quietly. Dr. Caldwell entered, checked the monitors, made notes on his tablet. "Vitals are excellent," he said. "She'll make a full recovery. The skull fracture is already beginning to heal. Should be released tomorrow evening." Vincent nodded once. Dr. Caldwell hesitated at the door. "Sir, I've prepared additional serum, 5 doses, and I've taken the liberty of upgrading the penthouse security protocols, given the circumstances." Their eyes met. "You know they'll come," the doctor said quietly. "I know. And you're prepared for war." It wasn't a question. Vincent's gaze returned to Ilara. "I've been preparing for war since Constantinople fell. The only difference now is I have something worth fighting for." Dr. Caldwell nodded, understanding passing between them. He left without another word. Vincent sat in the silence, listening to Ilara's heartbeat, the machines, the distant sounds of the hospital coming fully awake. His thumb traced gentle circles on her palm. She would wake soon, ask questions he couldn't fully answer, not yet. But she would stay. He knew that now. Just as he knew the Council would come, just as he knew he would destroy anyone who tried to take her from him. Vincent's eyes caught his reflection in the darkened television screen across the room. For just a moment they glowed, deep crimson, ancient, predatory, then returned to gray. He smiled, small, controlled, the kind of smile that had made kings nervous and enemies disappear. Let the Council come, let the others rage and threaten and invoke their precious covenant. He had burned Constantinople to ash 3 centuries ago when it threatened what was his. He would burn the entire vampire world if necessary. For her. The sunlight streaming through the blinds painted stripes across the floor, across the bed, across Ilara's sleeping face. Vincent sat in that light, protected by science, by preparation, by the simple fact that he had always been willing to go further than anyone else, and he waited, patient, vigilant, ready, because morning had come. The brother was dust, and Vincent Ashford was just getting started.